if I could get get everybody's attention back, and we're going to go around the room and share your entrepreneurial leadership, thinking, doing, troublemaking. Okay, who would like to go first?
I'm from the Little Compton Historical Society. Little Compton is the smallest town in Little Compton, and we're a very small organization. Our budget is about $150,000 a year. 2 year-round staff people. One does the books, and then I do more the museum stuff. This year, we became a publisher and wrote a beautifully illustrated hardcover book on the history of Little Compton. We were able to raise about $40,000 at the end of last year to cover the publication costs for the book. And then we have sold about 1,200 copies of the book so far, bringing in about $24,000. So we were budgeting about a $50,000 loss this year because we had a lot of capital projects to take care of, and we're going to end the year in the black because we became a publisher. And just one of the really nicest parts about the book is, our written history starts in the 17th century. We don't have a lot of 17th century images, so we asked local artists in the community to take a moment in history and interpret it through their art form. So we got about 40 artists to participate. We used that art as our exhibit this summer, which was really popular. We sold the art and kept half the sales price of the art, and the artist took the other half. But the book is illustrated with 23 really beautiful pieces of, present-day art from these local community members. So not only history people are interested in it, but the artists and their friends have been really interested in the book as well.
Thank you. That's terrific. Yes.
Tim from Fruitlands Museum. And this story is about Fruitlands and a transition that Maud Asen made with our institution. About 3 years ago, she had the vision and foresight to look about how do you take a very historical, heritage-centered museum and break it out of its mold. And she brought in these tree figures that are basically 50-foot high sculptures that are majestic, standing out on the ground, made out of trees turned upside down. And she brought in 8 of them in a different sculpture that all of a sudden took you from this little heritage to this bigger canvas. And it was a risk. It was a big risk because that's not who we were. And the ability to see that and be able to entice a new audience and allow us to use the land as a canvas was something that was entirely unique. And kudos to her for doing that.
We started to look at how we could, experiences where popular culture has worked to the museum's advantages. And I guess it started with an ancient recollection of mine from the Museum of Natural Sciences in Ottawa, Canada, years back when Von Daniken's Chariot of the Gods movie came out. And we were all incensed by this film. It doesn't give good credence to all of the hard work and ingenuity of humankind, blame everything on the spaceman. So the scientific staff were assembled to counteract Von Daniken's movie. And we knew that it would be a successful event. We had no idea how successful it was with people lined up for miles waiting to get into the museum, completely filling the auditorium and forcing the museum to do satellite broadcasts throughout the building to accommodate everybody that showed up. And it was just one of those examples of seizing the moment of something that was on everybody's mind, the popularity of that movie, and finding a way that the museum could exploit it. That then led to a discussion on using star power, if you would please.
Are they allowed 2 stories per table? Okay.
One's the dark.
That's entrepreneurial, yes. Okay, go for it. Risk takers, yes.
I'm from the Mary Baker Library in Boston, and in February we had a regular program in our Centennial series where Val Kilmer came in to do a program for us as he was researching a movie that he's making on Mary Baker Eddy and Mark Twain. And we had our normal audience, a wonderful sellout audience, but when I looked at it, it was just our usual people. It really didn't reach beyond into our community. So he offered to come back again in September, so I took the risk of telling our normal audience they couldn't come. And they watched it live on a web broadcast, but we did an invited audience into our community of educational community leaders and asked them to come into our museum to learn more about Mary Vic-Reddy and to kind of break some of the the normal knowledge about her, but to get below the surface so people who don't normally come to our museum came. So we had over 100 people came to that event. It was a huge success. Everybody that came said they did learn a lot about Mary Vic-Reddy, and we don't seem to have offended too many people in our normal audience. So it was great.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Coleman. I'm chairman of the Stanford Historical Society down in Stanford, Connecticut. When I came aboard, I got us up to a budget of $140,000. Now this year we'll be lucky to come in, I don't know, $80,000, $90,000 budget. So we have to be entrepreneurial because previous board members who shall remain nameless ran the place to the ground. So when I first came aboard, someone came up with the idea of utilizing our yard. We have a big parking lot, a big lawn. Let's have an antique car show. I'm like, all right, you do that because I don't know anything about it. A couple people on the board claimed that they could do this. P.S. The day of the show rolled around, 2 antique cars showed up. Did not do their homework. They did not get the people to display the cars, let alone the audience. We had more audience show up than cars. There were just too many antique car shows in our area that were very well established, so they didn't do the networking. So we came up with another idea, and it's not unique, but we thought it would work well for us. We wanted to bring in new audiences, expand. You know, we have mostly older folks, so we decided to do a touch a truck, where we brought in not only modern fire trucks, but historic fire trucks, World War II vehicles, in addition to construction vehicles that kids can climb on, face painting, bake sales, and we advertised in our community, and they came. We only charge about $5 a head to get in, and we don't charge for kids under 4 years old. And then people would go to see our exhibit as well. So we were bringing in people who never would have thought to come to our museum, and hopefully building a new member base. And this is our 4th year. We're doing okay. We're doing okay with it. So we are bringing in new people, and they're actually coming in to see our exhibit. So I think we achieved our goal.
Thank you.
The board I see as a barrier to success because, in fact, you've all of a sudden spread the leadership out from one person.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen success. What I have seen is successful projects have generally been one person driving the project. Now all of a sudden you've got 1 plus 18 or 21 or 24.
Right.
And any particular response on how we get that focus or what the steps are to make so that we can maintain the focus and not get it, I've got another great idea, I've got another great idea, and having
Right, right. Patrick, you want to answer that because that's your 1,000 ideas to finally 10 ideas. Okay.
First, let me talk to you about a real experience. A long, long time ago, I was an executive at Digital Equipment, and a certain blue cost me about $500,000. Now, what is the blue? The blue was the fact that Ken Olson, the founder, was very nicely bringing pizza to engineer all the time. And you know, as an engineer, they were having a big project. It was a Saturday noon or Saturday afternoon, and they were having a cabinet that had a certain blue. So the engineer, being excited, asked Ken Olson, the founder, "Do you like the blue?" And Ken, I don't know what he said, but he said probably not so much, a little bit blacker, but you know, something like this. And then about a month later, I got a $500,000 bill of various blue that were tested. So I went to see Ken Olson and I said, "Ken, you're totally nuts. Look at the money you cost me." And he said, "I didn't do anything." Essentially what had happened is I had mismanaged the group. instead of telling them the real rules, which is when Ken Olsen comes in, you eat the pizza and you shut up. They let themselves working with them on the project, on changing things. So I think one of the challenges you have in what you describe is the grammar of business there is to make sure that the project is circumscribed and defined well enough with steps so that you can firewall the busy finger of the founder or the busy finger of the board or whoever comes in, not by rejecting them, but by showing to them that there is impediment to progress and success if you let people put their busy fingers at all times. And that's the challenge of program management, because everybody is creative and wants to do things. So yes, the board has a responsibility not to come in too often and try to change the parameters, but the management has also a responsibility to set up the context so that the relationship with the board and the relationship with other people is defined enough that the negative unintended consequences don't come as often.
I completely agree with you, but in a nonprofit setting, it's much more complicated because the board is unpaid and they are
There's no doubt.
they're getting this sort of
That's their bennies, you know. Being participative gives them something.
and we are getting advice all the time to engage with your board and don't just look for their money, look for their expertise. I think it's made a bad situation worse. This lovely squishy, you know. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's stay out of my kitchen. Should get something done.
You know, all boards are bad. And I'm a board member of a few, so I know the truth. Your job, again, is to walk that line. And it's not easy, but you know, my advice and my experience is trying to avoid, again, unintended participation.
Wait, let me just very quickly answer that too. Is that, you know, let me defend the board's side. I think the board's I think the intentions are good. It might be due to some kind of innocence. The way I like to see it, because you know, creative ideas are not a dime a dozen, but they really it's a tide, it's a tsunami. It is to bring creative ideas, as Patrick says, 1,000 ideas, and then you have to, you know, stream it into, you know, an innovative idea that you can actually implement. So if you walk through that in the business approach using the grammar of business, they do see it. So there's a lot of hands up, so I want to, yes.
I just wanted to say, as a board member, if there is a strategic plan around this process that the board has bought into, I think it's much easier for the executive to walk that line.
Right.
So I think strategic planning is the first step that makes that possible.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with you. And then I would also like to take the further step. I think this is one of my personal passions. I think strategic plan is the first step. You absolutely need to go to the next step, from strategy to tactically operations, which is the business plan. So you have to have the two together. Yeah. I just want to quickly say this really funny story, because as I said, you know, a lot of these board members are totally well-intentioned, a lot of times because they're so innocent. Many years ago, I was on the board of the Fruitlands Museum. I remember one meeting, you know, I had to run off, you know, before the meeting ended, and was one of the board members. When I was just at the door, he was declaring to the rest of the board, if this were an HMO, this would be bankrupt. You know, it's just, they don't think the same way. So I think the whole board orientation and what are some of the, you know, fiduciary responsibilities and all that, and I think that will go a long, long way. Other questions? The dead whale lady.
Oh, dead whale lady.
Yes. Wendy.
This is just a personal soapbox tonight. I'd love to get your respective opinions about it. It's all this pressure that we're all being told, oh, we want you to be like the business, we want you to be entrepreneurial, we want you to do all this stuff. Well, one of the pieces that was missing in the matrix for both of you is motivation and compensation.
Mm-hmm.
The people who start startups have, I love that phrase, the great liquidity event. We don't. We don't get stuck. When we retire, it's what we came with. And so what is particularly irritating to me now is that we see in the press about all of these CEOs who've taken down our country's banking system and get an $8 million personal bonus for paying back the government's loan. Think of what we could do with $8 million. So I just would add somewhere to you, especially to board members, the next time you tell me, run like a business, I'm going to say, where's my stock option? Not that stock is so great right now, but it's one of those disconnects. I mean, I don't know that any of us here are getting limo rides, or that we have the best pension plans, or we have all this stuff. And I'm thinking, when Enron went down, I said, don't put those boys in jail. I want one of them to run my business and my budget and see if they do.
That was spoken with such undiluted passion. Thank you. But I also need to tell you a quick thing, yes, is that what you see in the press is only the very, like 0.00%. The majority of the business people are not getting that kind of reward.
What would they get paid more? They get stock. They get
All the stocks, okay. I think this is an answer my husband would be good at answering. So yours, Patrick.
First, that's a whale story. First, you have to take away what you read in the press. Most of the people that make those multi-billion dollars are not entrepreneurs. Different business. They're running large company, they're running banks, they're running stuff like this that are established with a slightly or very different type of management and type of mindset. And yes, I agree. I mean, it's easier as a manager of a startup to pay people peanuts, but to promise them the magic pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But that's not the real motivation. And it cannot be the real motivation because a lot of them fail. Just look at the number I put on the board. 1,000 business submission. 1,000 business submission means people have worked months to create a business plan, to create something that they can sell, and it fails. And then they succeed in raising the money, and 8 of them out of 10 will see no money out of it. So yes, the promise of the golden pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is there, but you have to temper it with the reality of business. And I think that the most important motivation for most people in true ventures is accomplishing something that nobody else has accomplished. But there's a lot of self-motivation based on the fact that you're pushing the envelope, you're doing things that are crazy, you're dealing with fun and crazy people, and that environment is what motivates you. Okay? And so, I understand your frustration, and I totally agree with you that the way society works sometimes doesn't reward everybody in an equal basis. But at the same time, as executive director, as a board member of museum and social organization, you may create environments that are a lot more vibrant by letting people do things. And that's the challenge, because entrepreneurs don't have resources. If I came out telling you that we have resources, I miss completely my pitch. There are many, many times when I was bankrupt next month and not paying the salaries and playing little games with the bank to make sure that I can cover my cash until some new cash comes in. So money is not there.
Thank you. But I would like to wrap up, and I can be eloquent like T.S. Lawrence, so I will just wrap up with this. All men and women dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds awake to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of day are dangerous men and women, that they may act their dreams with open eyes and make it possible. So with that, I want to thank you all for staying till the end. And Patrick and I will stay around if you have any questions.